Amazon and JD.com sort of driving forward with a much higher growth rate. So again, a challenge there for store-based retailers. And so when we look at what that disruption is bringing, it's really bringing us towards three main developments. Traditional store-based retailers are either closing stores, they're either looking at diversification, or they're really pushing forward quite significantly with a range of strategic initiatives. I'm pleased to say that clearly there are a lot of new strategic initiatives coming down, and I'm going to pass over to Flo now, who's going to take us through what retailers are doing right now to address that omni-channel challenge.
Thanks, David. So we've been through some of the challenges then that retailers are facing globally. I want now to turn to understand how retailers are actually starting to address some of these challenges. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring in some nice initiatives and actions that we've seen over the past year or so to really give you a sense of what retailers are doing to prepare for the future. So we're going to turn to our Store of the Future framework then in order to give this a little bit more detail. So the Store of the Future framework really emphasizes the need for store-based retailers to move away from notions of range, price, and proximity when it comes to the store, towards thinking about the store as a space of experience where consumers can be inspired, learn, socialize, and experiment. And these are the four key characteristics that we really believe stores should be executing on in order to succeed going forwards. So firstly, experiential. This is really about creating in-store experiences which can't be replicated online. Frictionless. So how are stores really becoming spaces of true convenience? How are they integrating with online, and how are they using state-of-the-art technology to create these convenient in-store experiences? Thirdly, curated. So this is more around products themselves and how stores are using product curation to create differentiation in store through product exclusives or in-store ranges. And finally, social. So transforming the role of the store to a social hub, spaces of community engagement, and also a focus on food service where customers can come in and dine in as well in store. So these are some of the things that we are promoting in terms of the Store of the Future. And in order to bring this to life, let's look at some of these characteristics in practice. So firstly then, experiential. So these are a couple of examples of retailers we believe are executing experiential retail particularly well. So the first is Carrefour. This is a couple of images from their Carrefour Mons store concept over in Belgium. So this is a one-off store concept. It's a hypermarket. And the real interesting thing about this store is the way it brings fresh products to life. So you can see the image here at the bottom left. This is an in-store brewery where beer is actually brewed on site, and consumers are encouraged to taste and to purchase this local beer. And there's also a real element of fresh in-store food production as well, and a lot of dine-in services too. Sephora as well over in Barcelona. They're really engaging with experiential retail, and Sephora is a pioneer really of experiential retail. And they're really bringing their stores to life, making them fun, engaging spaces. Consumers can even enter this store in Barcelona via a slide. There's also virtual try-on screens and test and play bars to really bring their products to life in store. And when we're talking about experiential retail, one of the trends that we're seeing more and more of is retailers partnering with brands to really elevate their in-store experience. And this can be seen in a couple of key ways. So firstly, through retailers dedicating in-store sections to brands through shop-in-shops. And this is what you can see here in the right-hand image, with Walgreens partnering with Birchbox over in the US to elevate their in-store experience. And then also what we're seeing is retailers and brands actually working together on whole store concepts. And Casino and L'Oreal have done this over in Paris to create a drugstore which combines a selection of L'Oreal brands amongst others, but it also really is engaging for the urban shopper. There's hair and makeup services designed to equip them with services on the go. So some really interesting trends there from an experiential retail perspective. So moving on to our second key characteristic, this is frictionless. And when I was talking about frictionless, I was talking about the need for a truly convenient experience. And one of the ways that we're seeing this come to life in store initiatives is through payment innovation. And perhaps the most well-known of these is Amazon's Amazon Go concept. For those of you that are less familiar with this, Amazon Go's stores are convenience stores which use state-of-the-art technology to track shoppers as they're going around the store, and this enables them to purchase without actually having to visit a checkout. So a very transformative store format. And other retailers as well are getting in on the act. So Carrefour partnered with Tencent, which is a Chinese technology company, to open this high-tech supermarket in Shanghai, where shoppers can actually pay using facial recognition. So lots of interesting innovation going on in terms of technology and in terms of payment innovation to really reduce that friction in store. So moving on to the third key characteristic then, and that is curated. And curated is an increasingly important characteristic. There's a couple of key trends that we're seeing in terms of curation. So the first is really using products to create cause-related curation. And we're seeing this in a couple of kind of key examples from retailers here. So firstly, through the likes of plastic-free aisles, where retailers are really focusing more around environmental sustainability, but also in terms of integrating whole sections of curated ranges into the store. So Carrefour is a really good example of this. This is an image of one of their bio sections. So bio is a certified organic own label range for Carrefour. All of the produce is locally sourced, and they're now dedicating whole sections of their hypermarket stores to this bio range to really drive differentiation from online and create more of an interesting and interactive in-store experience. Curation is also being seen in terms of data. So increasingly what we're seeing now is retailers thinking a lot more creatively about how they can range their products in store through using data and through connecting a lot more with online. And Amazon have introduced this 4-star store concept. There's only one of these at the moment in New York, and this was opened in September last year. And this store only sells items which are rated 4 stars or above on Amazon or are top sellers. And it captures angles from ratings and behavioural data as well as frequently bought together items. So a really transformative store and illustrates the power of data to reward on-shelf visibility and create more linkages between online and offline. And Facebook and Macy's have also done something similar, a really interesting concept here in the US. So Macy's have put these Facebook pop-up areas inside their stores, and these are selling brands which are on Facebook's marketplace. So these are brands which typically haven't had a store presence before. They tend to be new and digitally native. So it's really giving Macy's a bit of a competitive edge, but also an interesting angle to its in-store assortment using data to drive that. So finally, moving on to our last characteristic of the store of the future, and this is social. The most common way that we're seeing retailers investing in this characteristic is through in-store restaurants and food service provision. Carrefour is doing a lot of this in their larger hypermarket stores, integrating innovative bistro dining concepts into the centre of their stores and kind of increasing the dwell time here. And of course, restaurants and in-store food services is a central component of Alibaba's Hema proposition. And for those of you that haven't seen it, they introduced a robotic restaurant last year, which is a really interesting concept. So do go and have a look at that one if you haven't seen it. So that's it in terms of the store of the future characteristics. So clearly we're seeing some really interesting innovation coming through in terms of retailers investing in the store of the future. But there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of really honing in on the key capabilities to succeed going forwards. And so now we're going to dig a bit deeper and look at some of these key capabilities. So what are the things that we believe you should be focusing on in order to win in the future? And there are 4 key capabilities that we believe are some of the most important to omnichannel retailers at the moment and going forward. So these are experiential retail, digital integration, rethinking front of store, and fulfillment versatility. So let's go through some of these in a bit more detail then. So firstly, experiential retail. So we talked a little bit about this before, but experiential retail is really about driving memorable in-store experiences which can't essentially be replicated online. And there are 5 key pillars of experiential retail that retailers should really be promoting in order to succeed here. So experiment, this is really about how you are bringing your products to life through testing or sampling in store. Entertain, so creating generally interesting experiences through in-store games or events. Excite, this is more around creating traffic and excitement into store through one-off promotions or exciting events. Equip, this is really around services. So how are you investing in in-store services to create some sort of differentiation from your online channels? And finally, educate, using your in-store space to either hold workshops or to provide more product education on the origins of your products. So a couple of my favorite examples of experiential retail then that we've seen pop up recently. So the first is Petcare's service-led pet coach store. So this was opened last year, and the interesting thing about this store is it's really just solely focused on providing services. So there's a grooming parlor, there's puppy training, there's also nutritional advice in store. So really focusing then on this equip characteristic of experiential retail. And then John Lewis over in the UK, they've partnered with Nestle, so working with a leading brand to integrate these quality street pop-ups in their stores in the run-up to Christmas. So customers could go in and they could create their own personalised quality street tub. And this really generated a lot of excitement and a lot of traffic into their stores and gave customers a really interactive and value-added experience. So one of the questions that we're often asked in terms of experiential retail is, well, what is the impact? Does this actually kind of create successful in-store propositions in terms of the return on investment? And to highlight this, I just wanted to bring up this Target case study, which really shows the impact that experiential retail can have. A couple of years ago, Target was really struggling. It was struggling to differentiate in terms of its stores. It was also facing increasing competition from the likes of online players such as Amazon, and you can see this in their comparable sales growth in decline in 2016. But at the start of 2017, they invested a lot of money into a store remodeling program, and over the course of a couple of years, they've really invested in their stores through this next generation store program. They're making them look and feel more like department stores. They're investing a lot more on their customer service and integrating technology such as augmented reality into the stores as well. And you can start to see this coming through in terms of their comparable sales growth. And this culminated in their best ever traffic sales growth in the second quarter of 2018. So some really kind of tangible impacts there from investing in the in-store experience. We've also done some other studies looking at retailers and brands elsewhere who are investing in experiential retail initiatives, and this really captures the impact of some of those initiatives. And you can see from this the real range of impacts that you can kind of create from experiential retail, from driving sales, from driving traffic to halo in store. And 2 of the key impacts that came out from this were sales. So actually, from putting in experiential retail initiatives, you can drive incremental sales, but also driving brand awareness, which will hopefully drive traffic into store in the future. So experiential retail tends to be quite small scale. They tend to be pilots and fairly limited at the moment, but actually they really need to be continually rolled out and become a lot more mainstream, because as you can see, they're not necessarily a nice to have, but actually they are essential to drive store return on investment. So we're going to pass on now to David to talk through a couple more of these winning capabilities.
Yeah, thanks, Flo. So if experiential retail was our first capability for this year and beyond, then digital integration is an absolute must in terms of capability going forward. And I mean, digital integration happens across the whole store, but I've put the flowchart there of the shopper journey up there because I think where it really impacts and where it can really drive sales and performance is within that sort of discovery and selection phase of the shopper journey. So it's just those areas right now that I want to take a look at in terms of digital integration. And you can see on the screen many different examples of how digital integration can be applied in that part of the shopper journey. So let's take a little bit of a look at some good examples as to what we're seeing around discovery and things like shelf edge displays. So Kroger and Microsoft, they're doing some interesting work in the US with sort of digital shelf edge displays there, offering pricing and product information, but also using potential to use through the shop apps, through the shopping app, a guided product discovery for shoppers as they go around the store. Casino, picking walls there, Carrefour do something similar as well in some of their stores, but again, an opportunity to discover products through a digital wall and actually order products for delivery later that day. And also Zara, using sort of virtual reality there, augmented reality, creating a virtual look, which through a very simple click process, you can then order online and have that delivered. So lots of sort of interesting examples happening with digital integration around discovery and selection as well. And actually for this, I turn to the health and beauty sector because they've been doing quite a lot of good work in this channel. And actually some similar examples from Alibaba in terms of their Magic Mirror, Target and Sephora, just looking at how digitally integrated this channel, this sector can become, looking at sort of trying on makeup in a virtual way, looking at real-time inventory in terms of ordering, being able to book in-store sessions, being able to sort of really easily reorder and collect product, whether in-store or out of store. So some really nice things happening, particularly in the health and beauty sector. And I'd expect to see a lot more development here as well. But I think here lies also the challenge in that looking at some data here from the National Retail Federation, what we're seeing are relatively high levels of awareness and trial in terms of sort of digitally integrated initiatives. Really, really good awareness levels there. And actually, if, where people have tried them as well, some reasonable levels of trial. However, the real challenge for retailers is satisfaction. Look at those lower satisfaction scores for people that have actually tried these sort of digitally integrated features. And I think this is a real challenge. This is a real opportunity perhaps for retailers to try and remove those barriers, to try and push forward innovation that's really going to drive that sort of personalization, that immediacy, that transparency in a way that can actually emulate what shoppers are getting in the online world. So a challenge there for retailers to really push digital integration further forward. The third capability that I just wanted to pull out here is work that we're doing around rethinking the front of store, and particularly how that applies to the new shopper touch points that we're seeing emerge across the shopper journey, but across actually all stores in all channels. The traditional front end is transitioning. It is moving into a whole range of different touch points, and I've just put a few on screen there to give you a sense. In many respects, Amazon have grabbed the headlines, of course they have, with their Just Walk Out technology, and deservedly so, but actually many retailers are now rethinking the front of store and actually developing so many more new touch points. And retailers and brands need to consider how best to sort of think this through and what it might mean for sales going forward. If you're in any doubt about how many of these new consumer touch points are emerging, then just a little bit of data that I've pulled out of a report that we did last year on rethinking the front of store. Curbside pickup really becoming widespread across many retailers. Walgreens in the US, of course, look at those click and collect points that they have now across the US. Self-scan technology becoming quite relevant in various stores like Kroger. So a lot of new touch points emerging across stores both in Europe and the US. So in terms of managing that, in terms of seeking the opportunity from that, that's going to be a real capability in itself, because as the traditional funnel of shoppers through that front end starts to dissipate, retailers and brands need to think about how best to capitalize on that. And we've put together a useful little sort of grid there of possible strategies, three of which, and I've highlighted in green, are really relevant for in-store. So things like in-store innovation, thinking about product adjacencies, push alerts, in-store brand store zones, different ways in which to put brands and sales opportunities in front of shoppers as they shop the whole store, and not just through that traditional funnel of the front end that we've known in the past. Curbside capture as well. Think about all those sort of drives that are being created in the Carrefour across France, for example. Think about all those pickup zones that Walmart are developing. Where is the opportunity now to drive impulse sales? Is it vending? Is it through showcasing and product positioning in that respect? And also in terms of pickup, so many more pickup points, pickup collection points now in store. The brands and retailers need to think about the opportunity to capture sales as shoppers use that form of collection. So I think as the front end transitions, there's a real opportunity for brands and retailers to work together to think about the best way to maximize new impulse sales as those sort of traditional touch points really migrate into something quite new and different. And for the final fourth capability, back to Flo.
Thanks, David. Yep, so on to our fourth and final capability then, which is all around fulfillment versatility. And what do we mean by this? Well, firstly, I think it's important to note some of the challenges that retailers are facing, and this is an increasing challenge for retailers in terms of the complexity of today's supply chain. So driven by e-commerce, there are so many more routes now to the end consumer, and if you were to multiply out the different ways that consumers now can order, pick and pack, deliver and receive their products, there's actually over 3,000 routes to the end consumer. So that's creating a lot of challenges when it comes to retailer supply chains. So what is required then for a successful and supply chain and fulfillment? So firstly, automated. This is all around bringing in automation into the fulfillment process, either through warehousing or through delivery, to really drive down costs and increase efficiencies. Agile, it's really important as well to have flexibility in the supply chain in order to meet all of these various different consumer demands that are emerging. But of course, promisable also has to be a feature of today's supply chain, because you have to be able to deliver on time and in full. And then finally, real time. So retailers increasingly now are having to respond in real time and adapt to these heightened expectations for immediacy from today's consumer. So in terms of how retailers can respond then, I just wanted to highlight Walmart's fulfillment model here, because Walmart is an example of an omnichannel retailer who is now starting to recognize some of the challenges of fulfillment. And you can see here from all of the different ways that consumers can collect their items or have them delivered and received, that Walmart is really investing in fulfillment versatility, both in terms of automation. So you can see this in terms of these pickup towers, automated pickup towers, which Walmart has got, where customers can go in and they can pick up a delivery automatically without having to engage with the in-store colleagues. But also you can also see that Walmart is using its store estate, so its physical store estate, to leverage a successful and agile fulfillment process. So the other thing that we're seeing when it comes to fulfillment versatility, and we think will be an increasing capability for retailers to think about, is partnerships, both in terms of delivery intermediaries. So we're seeing increasingly now retailers using third-party delivery platforms to increase their capabilities when it comes to delivery. So third-party delivery such as Instacart or Shipt or Glovo, these are all global trends now that we're seeing, with retailers really investing and using partnerships in order to increase their fulfillment. And then also we're seeing retailers actually partnering together. So Walgreens and Kroger, in an unlikely partnership here, a drugstore and a grocery store partnering, but actually it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So for Kroger, they are increasing their click and collect points by putting them inside Walgreens stores. But for Walgreens as well, by having these click and collect points, they're going to get Kroger customers into their stores and potentially drive an in-store halo effect as well. So The couple of other things that I wanted to pick out here when it comes to fulfillment is promisable and real time. So when we're talking about real time, increasingly retailers now are challenged in terms of delivery speeds. And we did some research last year which really highlights this. So breaking down the fastest delivery speed of the top 25 retailers in 5 leading e-commerce markets, you can see that actually same day delivery is offered by the majority of those retailers. So 80% of retailers are offering same day delivery and 20% are offering next day delivery. So fast on demand delivery is now table stakes for retailers, and retailers need to be kind of investing in the speed of their delivery in order to keep pace. And we're seeing some interesting innovations coming through as well. So Walgreens launched this Find Care Now platform, which is providing instant healthcare access, really responding to this on-demand expectations. But of course, it's no good offering these fast delivery speeds if you can't deliver on them, and increasingly promisable fulfillment. So things like dedicated, guaranteed on time delivery programs, as well as giving visibility of current inventory, is going to be increasingly important for retailers. So the supply chain and the speed of which the fulfillment is going to have to be carried out is an increasing challenge for retailers, but one that they really need to be investing in order to succeed going forwards. So with that, that's the fourth of our winning capabilities. I will pass now on to David to summarize and give you some key takeaways.
Yeah, thanks, Flo. So, look, just in the last 1 minute of our broadcast here, let me kind of just bring back those 4 capabilities onto the screen there. And, I think, what we're saying here in terms of the omnichannel challenges, whether it's online or offline, whether it's digital or physical, it needs to be a whole experience that needs to be connected, needs to be personalized, needs to be seamless. And what we've shown you there is 4 capabilities that we believe are going to be absolutely essential in 2019 and beyond in terms of bringing all together into the physical store experience. And by doing that, you can create many things like experience, consumption, logistics centers that are truly connected and can create a sort of individual personalized experience for every shopper. I guess the challenge, as we articulated at the beginning, was not necessarily that an awareness of what's needed, but the pace at which this must now happen, given the expectations from consumers, the movement of competitors, and the level of internal change that is required. So I started with a quote from Jack Ma. Let me end with a quote as well. This, I think, is a nice quote. It came last week or just a few days ago from Brian Cornell, who heads up the Target, and clearly we used Target as a bit of an example earlier on when we were talking about experiential retail. And this was on the back of, again, another trading update, very positive like-for-like sales performance. And I think, what he says here about, bringing, placing the stores at the center of everything that they do to serve their guests, including both in-store shopping and digital fulfillment, I think nicely captures the ambition here in terms of what the omnichannel challenge really is going forward. So a good way to finish. I'd say thank you very much for your time and listening to this broadcast. There will be slides available after this. Apologies for any interference on the line in the first part of the broadcast. But again, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And from the Edge team here in London, a very good afternoon to you.